Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of The Conslog, episode number 54. This is the past week of Halloween, October 31st through November 6th, and I am again joined with my faithful co host, Matthew Gersman. Hello, Matthew.
Shalom, y'all. I am calling from Tel Aviv, Israel. I was just at React Next, which was a fantastic conference. I got to speak about functional programming, where I made a lot of references to Natalie Portman. Fun fact, she is Israeli, and she was my local celebrity of choice, as opposed to my usual celebrity choice, who is Taylor Swift. And I will share more details about that talk when I have them. Or when I have a video, I should say.
Yeah, congrats on your first conference talk, Matthew.
Thank you. It was very exciting. I wore a headset and everything, and I opened in Hebrew, and then I showed a picture of me eating a giant sandwich, or me holding a giant sandwich, I should say, because I wanted to then correct the fact that I am actually American.
Sounds appropriate. Let's get on with the show.
Yeah, I think we should hit the theme song.
Let's hit it.
I realize it's not how it goes.
First off, starting this past week of news, is everyone's prettiest and favoritist editor, Prettier, has a PR that was just merged this past week that adds some support for HTML, Vue, that's Vue, and Angular to actually have Prettier support those other technologies. Actually, things that I was shocked Prettier didn't already support these things.
Yeah, that was my reaction too. I was, especially HTML.
Yeah, that was I was like, yeah, I imagine Prettier just makes everything prettier. Why wouldn't it support these things as well? So it's a big PR.
Yeah, I looked at it. It's pretty meaty. Good for them. I mean, I'm glad that they are supporting more technologies. And, now my HTML, as they say over here, will look nicer.
Yeah, it would look definitely prettier. I think this is close. They're almost ready to release version 1.15 that will have the support. But I mean, this is one step closer to making sure that there will never again be another PR that has to add a comment about spacing. So very exciting if you are in those worlds of HTML, Vue, and Angular.
Yeah. So on to our next update is Storybook just released version 4.0, and I can share some information from the link we're going to post, which is some of the flagship features are that it supports 6 new view layers, so it integrates with Riot.js and Ember and a bunch of other new things. It also is now built with Webpack.
It'll go
Excuse me?
along well with the new prettier. It'll go along well with the new prettier support.
It's true. It'll go along well with it's built with Webpack 4 and Babel 7, it's kind of just nice that that's baked in. They've also added first class support for React Native, which is really cool. And then so some other things so the way Harry and I produce these episodes is he sends me a document with a list of links, or we share a document with a list of links. And today I was on a bus with a bunch of other developers touring Israel. And at the top of the doc that Harry sends me, I see it says we're going to talk about Storybook 4.0. And I go, huh, one of the maintainers is on this bus. So I walk to the front of the bus and I say, hey, Norbert, you wanna talk to me about Storybook 4.0? And I got to feel like a journalist. It was very cool. So I got some choice quotes from him about Storybook 4.0. What he's most excited about is that by supporting more frameworks, it brings so many more developers into Storybook, and he's hoping that by having different frameworks involved now, it can benefit the entire community. So, for example, there have been a lot of pull requests from the Riot community, which I actually hadn't heard of previously, and they are adding features to Storybook or starting to add features to Storybook that will then benefit every other community that uses Storybook. He actually kind of imagines Storybook being a place that brings all of these different frameworks together. The other big thing he noted, so the big product feature in this release is theming, which allows you to change the colors and sizes of Storybook. You can even white label it if you want to like brand your component library. But what's super cool is he's like, we didn't want to do too much work on theming because on the roadmap for 5.0, they're going for a super heavy overhaul of the UI. One of with all these different view modes, and one of the stretch goals, he made it very clear that this was a stretch goal for 2018, would be side-by-side documentation and components, which would be a huge win for Storybook. So I am really excited to see what happens with this project going forward.
You're a modern day sleuth, a gumshoe.
It is as though I am a friendly person and said hi to the person with all the information.
I mean, it's always shocking to me that you can even talk to someone face to face, not over the internet only. Incredible.
Yeah, that's the advantage of going to conferences. You get to meet these people.
I mean, when you travel around the world, you go around the globe, you see a lot of things. And speaking of globes, setting myself up for a segue.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, thanks. I did that segue just in the nick
Excellent.
of time. Everyone's favorite committee that decides the future of ECMAScript, TC39. There's been a proposal for a while to standardize the concept of a global object, and that's in the web that is window, in Node that is global. They're similar, but they're not consistent, so they've been trying to unify them underneath the global object. There was a recent update to this proposal that they found some conflicts when trying to use the name global to have them be similar, and instead they're contemplating renaming it to be global this being camel cased, which is a thing. I mean, it's not, people get hung up on naming. I'm a little annoyed by this, but again, if there's consistency
You're annoyed by
and
this
I'm
in the
annoyed by
global
this.
scheme. You're annoyed.
I have a global this annoyance, but it's right now I think in stage 3, so that means it's close to getting done, which means that global this was them finding some places where using global actually broke existing websites, and a big decree in TC39 is to make sure they don't have any backwards breaking changes. So I'm sure this wasn't done glibly, but just keeping you all updated about the future of TC39 and ECMAScript, that global this is coming around at you on this globe of this.
Yeah. Random note: I once attended a panel with TC39, and they just the coolest thing that I don't think I'll ever forget was they said from their perspective the TC39 proposals are just or the TC39, like the codified version of ECMAScript, is just another implementation of the language. So the spec from their vantage point, the spec itself is an implementation of whatever ECMAScript is supposed to be, and they kind of think of themselves like even with the Chromes and Safaris of the world. So I always just found that really interesting. As far as global this is concerned, I mean, we can bike shit over anything. I guess there's a good reason to do this globally. I don't know.
Whatever. Speaking of being polite and keeping others people's feelings in mind, there's a fun little article from Axios, it's a news publication, about the effect of the double character limit size of Twitter has after a year of that. So if you remember, about a year ago, Twitter doubled their character limit to 280, and there's been some reflections on how this actually impacted user behavior. It's a 5-6 bullet points, but thought it was just interesting to just share with everybody because a lot of this news is collected on Twitter. And one of the nice byproducts of this increase in character limit is that there are 54% more messages that say please and 22% more say thank you since the character limit doubled. So by enabling people to be more expressive, it's also allowed them to be more polite, which is such a novelty in this day and age.
I know, just being friendly with people, it's crazy.
So kind.
I just enjoy the fact that they've added the ability to tweet storm, which they mentioned in this article, that the fact that tweet storms are now a first class feature means that it is easier to just like post longer thoughts, and that's part of the reason why tweets haven't really increased in size. As people are tweeting so often concurrently at the same time about different things in these tweet storms, they're doing it in a browser that has WebAssembly threads ready to try, because those are coming in Chrome 70. Yes, that is our update. WebAssembly threads are now ready to try in Chrome 70. And you all know at this point how excited I get about threading in JavaScript. Maybe it's just because I don't actually think I'm qualified to write threads, so this is finally an excuse for me to learn how to do it. Or maybe it's just because I am hopeful that the React team or all the frameworks I use will just go ahead and do the threading magic for me. I don't know, but it really just like it makes the web feel like a better platform that we're getting these primitives, and I am just so excited to see this move forward in Chrome and in Mozilla, and then hopefully the other browsers that sometimes take a little longer to implement these things.
I mean, this is another step towards making WebAssembly a fully featured uh, compilation target for most applications. There's a big blog post a few weeks ago from Mozilla about all the different parts of WebAssembly that have already been completed, some that are in progress, some that are planned for the future. Threads is one of those that obviously was in progress, now it's complete, at least for Chrome, and it definitely unlocks a lot of applications that require multiple threads. What I found most interesting about this, the link in the show notes to read about the WebAssembly threads in detail is about how threads, what about web workers? Web workers are a way to do parallelism in the web since 2012. What about them? And the reason why uh, WebAssembly isn't using web workers is due to a restriction, a security restriction in web workers, in the fact that you can't share state and JavaScript objects across different web worker threads due to the way that they're implemented. So instead, WebAssembly threads are using a shared array buffer, which is a JavaScript primitive to actually share the actual memory itself across those threads to make it a little bit more performant. Delve into it more deeply if you want to in the article itself. Interesting, again, the web is becoming a more and more viable compilation target for everyone, which is just going to be good for everybody, for game, C developers, for web, JavaScript engineers. The more the web is important, the more people will use it, and again, things will expand from there.
I'm waiting for the day that we run a virtual machine that runs a virtual machine that runs a virtual machine on the web that runs Doom.
I think someone did that.
No, they didn't do that many levels of Inception.
Okay, more
Yeah.
levels.
We need
Uh,
we need a few WASM targets in there.
all right. GitHub is trying to
I
ship
think they've
a lot of.
remembered something.
They have ability to bookmark things.
Yeah, I think that's it.
GitHub shipped a new feature. You can now bookmark notifications that you want to save for later. This is part of a trend in GitHub where they're trying to ship more smaller but more impactful features. I've talked about this in the past, their paper cuts initiative, trying to fix little annoyances that cause a big issue when people are actually using the website. So they shipped this small little thing to make it easier for you to manage your notification. It's there, it's live, use it or don't.
Yeah,
You concur?
I concur with the concurrency of the GitHub bookmarks. Actually, the threads are concurrent. I concur. That was a
Good.
great movie.
So moving on, Yarn, everyone's alternative favorite package manager that's not NPM, they've had this initiative to make a new way of handling the node modules folder. I think we talked about this in the past. This thing called plug and play. Essentially, it's making it more efficient to use third-party dependencies in a node application or front-end application by this thing called plug and play. The reason why I'm bringing it up right now is because there is now it's available to use today. There's a README, a gist that's linked showing you 3 steps on how to get started with plug and play. I haven't tried it myself. I'm curious to try it to see what it actually looks like. I think it makes your entire node modules folder empty except for like one file that kind of does like mappings of node modules to things on your disk. But that's there for you to play with. If you do play with it, let us know. Tweet at us because I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's some Symlink magic going on under the hood here.
But it's not Symlinks exactly because I think there's restrictions around that. But there's definitely magic, without a doubt. Magic.
Magic.
Speaking
You
of
know,
magic,
you know what's magic? Types.
what's
You know
magic?
what's even more magical? Getting types for free. You know what's even more magical? Getting types for free in Create React app, because in version 2.1, which just came out, it has TypeScript support, which is great. It's also kind of crazy that Create React app by the company Facebook that makes Flow is being like, hey, we're just going to like default to TypeScript support. So I find that really interesting.
They're not defaulting to TypeScript support. They're doing some magic where if you have the TypeScript package installed, it'll automatically discover it and then say, cool, all engines go. So it's not built in, but you can opt in.
Oh, okay, I missed that. Okay, so maybe
Yeah,
less
that's the
exciting.
magic part. But it's
Yeah, I
still great that
mean,
you don't.
yeah, that's okay. I sorry, I got a little too hyped, and much like the front end community has been hyped, because 21,000 of you people, or maybe one person 21,000 times, I'm not sure, created sandboxes with React hooks. So that is wild that there are 21,000, 52 code sandboxes created with React hooks. So
CoSandbox, of course, being kind of like JS Fiddle, JS Bin. It's an online website that you can actually write and run code. So this is
y'all are just hooked on hooks. Like, I don't even know what to say about that. You know what was funny? At the conference I was at, almost every speaker needed to figure out a way to shoehorn why hooks didn't make their talk irrelevant, including me.
nice.
Yeah.
That's when you know you have a big lure.
Yeah.
Speaking of
It was
speaking
really
of
funny.
speaking of hooks having a big effect on the community, there was this really cool Google Doc released by some developers on V8. V8 being the JavaScript engine that runs all your JavaScript code on Chrome. So it's a pretty big deal. Talking about the performance impact when using array destructuring patterns, which is what you're supposed to use with React hooks. And this is a really cool article because uh, mostly cool because I didn't understand most of it, so that's great. But it's talking about the actual bytecode that's generated by V8 when you encounter array destructuring. And what I find most interesting is that the reason why this article exists is because it's actually pretty slow right now to do array destructuring with V8 because the way that the spec defines the behavior for array destructuring is actually using iterators. And by having array destructuring present, you actually have to inline the entire iterator bytecode in that block of code every time it's present. And that has a big, and you can actually look in this Chrome document and see the actual, it's color coded to see the parts of the bytecode that are relevant to just the array destructuring, ones that are relevant just to like assignment. And it's like huge. It's huge. Fear not, because they're aware of this issue, and the reason why this article was written was because to show they're aware of this issue and figure out ways to actually mitigate the impact of array destruction with React hooks. But if you are curious about some bytecode with V8, if those buzzwords get you buzzing, definitely click into this article and take a read because I found it
No,
fascinating.
it's almost as though two of the biggest tech companies in the world talk to each other when they are releasing major software that needs to be compatible with each other.
Communication's impossible.
That's yeah. I mean, yeah, almost.
Speaking of communications,
Yeah. So I will take this one. So one of the other people I got to hang out was Ram from the React Native team, and he was telling me, not Hector Ramos. This is Ram, whose full name I would butcher. So he told me just to say Ram on the podcast. But anyway, the React Native team recently put out the open source roadmap for React Native. They are trying very hard to make React Native much more like Core React, where it is a very healthy GitHub repository with stable APIs and a vibrant ecosystem and improving the documentation. They're really working on a lot of things. Ram also gave a great talk at React Next about how they are rewriting the bridge from React Native to the native code that runs. So that was really interesting when that talk lands. When the video comes out, we'll talk more about it, talk about the talk. And then the other thing is I got to sit next to him again today and be my little reporter. And he wanted me to give them a plug for getting the community involved. So they really want people to be involved with it. They are thrilled to have you. So if you are interested in React Native, if you want to update something, or if you want to try open source, they would love to have you involved. Just ping one of the maintainers and they will just like figure out an issue for you to tackle. The other thing is they'd really love to build a more diverse community. So if you're from an underrepresented group, they would love to see you involved. So he quoted someone that he can't remember who said this, so we cannot properly attribute this quote, but it's that diversity is inviting people to the party, inclusion is asking them to dance, which I thought was a really sweet quote. So anyway, the React Native team has put out tons of updates lately. get involved. If you write React Native, submit a PR, submit an issue, fix a typo in documentation. I'm sure there is one, just not because of React Native, because there's always typos. And yeah, that is it. Harry, did I do that justice? Do you have thoughts?
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
You did that
beautiful
natively.
in every
You're
single
beautiful.
way.
Oh, don't. We're gonna start to serenade here.
Words shouldn't bring you down.
They never do. Just types do.
Yeah, you know what I do though when a JavaScript date has gone bad though. I say, don't call me. I'll call back you. I promise.
I was hoping for a Matthew joke at the end of this episode, and you do not cease to live up to that hope.
Well, hey, why did the CoffeeScript developer keep getting lost? Because he couldn't find his source without a map.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's what I needed to hear. Good job.
Okay, one more. One last one. It's always three. Why did the developer go broke? Because he used up all his cash.
Nice. You can take that to the bank and invest it.
And get nothing out of it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's episode 54. October 31st, November 6th. You learn some things that you didn't know before. If you have some things that we don't know about, let us know on Twitter. You can also let us know about it. I need to add a contact form to the website. I figured out how to do that with Netlify, actually.
By the way, so many people came up to me at the conference and told me they listened to the console log, which was hilarious because Harry and I genuinely don't believe that anyone is listening to this. So please let us know that you're listening, because we just think we're doing this for fun.
I mean, we are doing it for fun. We just think we're doing it for ourselves for fun. It's a bit...
Yeah, something Harry taught me many years ago is that you tell jokes for your own amusement, and then if other people laugh, that's a bonus. Although I did recently realize an addendum, which is that if you're in front of 600 people and they don't laugh, it's pretty sad.
I mean, that's called an anti-joke, and that's the highest form of humor, in my opinion. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Yeah, just be like, on the aside, let's take 5 minutes to explain this joke. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Do let us know if you listen. We love to hear from you. We're trying to get more guests on the show as well, so hopefully you'll hear new names coming in the future. That's just me saying things. Who knows if that's true? But it's November. We'll see you again next week. Any last words, Matthew?
Shalom. I am going to Greece after this, so I will be on a sunny place the next time I record an episode with Harry. We are doing this from a massive time zone difference, but hey, we care about you, our listeners, who may or may not be figments of our imagination.
Wonderful. Bye, everyone.